Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
It's 8:30 in the United Kingdom. Welcome to another episode of Devil's Advocate here on All for United. I am your host, Grant. I am stepping in for Keane Freeney today, who, of course, hosts this excellent show. Keane's had some technical problems to deal with tonight, so he has asked me to be the Max Rushton once again of this channel and step in to cover the presenting duties. I'm joined for tonight's show by four gentlemen who really know their onions about Manchester United. I'm joined by Ahmed. How you doing, my man? Good evening to you.
Yeah, hello. Lovely to be back. This is all Connor's fault for why I'm here in the first place. He's prodded me for long enough, so here I am. And couldn't have come at a more convenient time. But yeah, brilliant to be here.
It's great to have your beautiful face on the channel, man. So great to see you. We are also joined by Fred. Fred, welcome back to you, my good man.
Hello, Grant. I hope you're okay. Hope everyone else is okay too.
Yeah, all very good at this end. We have our astute gentleman below me, the one and only Stu Woolley. Stu, welcome back to you, my good man.
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, not bad. I'm all right, actually. I'm not too bad. I'm probably a bit more jovial than most.
Good stuff. Good.
So it's all good. It's all good.
Good stuff. It's great to have you on, and I'm delighted to be joined on the show, certainly for my case as a presenting role, for the first time by the one and only Callum Stone. Callum, a warm welcome to you, my good man.
You all right? It's been a while. Felt like I should come on after this bag of shit weekend, so why not?
Well, you'll certainly have you. Oh, sorry, go on.
We won't name on the tactical preview, so yeah, we've got to find a home for him now, haven't we, pal?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Really looking forward to chatting to you about this week's situations on the Devil's Advocate podcast. We're always wanting to look for people to follow our content, so please like and subscribe. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all other social media platforms. Get your comments in, and we'll read them out straight at the show. But, gents, we're going to start tonight. Obviously, another really disappointing result on Saturday lunchtime. Manchester United dropping more points in the Premier League, a 1-1 draw with Southampton. To really the third game in a row where Manchester United have taken the lead and not seen a game out. There's a lot of talk on this show this week, and we're really going to be discussing the defensive-minded situations at the club. John says, evening all, and Hammer is also joining us as well, so good to see you guys. Andrew, very much checking in as well. Gents, let's start with some of the defensive issues, because we're really going to talk about that tonight. And one of the first things I want to talk about is Harry Maguire. He's really been, once again, the subject of a lot of criticism amongst fans, a lot of pundits on various social media platforms. And really the question I want to ask you guys is he the scapegoat, or has his performances really warranted the criticism? And really, is he in danger of being Manchester United's worst ever captain? And Ahmed, I've got to come to you on this because, Maguire, a lot of talk's been made about the price tag, that he came to United, but he's had a really, really difficult season, hasn't he?
Just before he jumps in, I'm going to time this.
If you're wondering why, Callum tweeted out before the show about how long I talk when I come online. So I will limit myself to, 30 seconds at best.
You've already done 15.
For me, that's not fair. Excuse me. Not yet. Let me just get out of the way. Look, Maguire's not been the same since the Euros for me. He looks like a player who's very tired and hasn't exactly been up to scratch for me the last couple of months, particularly watching him yesterday and at Burnley. I'm starting to lose confidence in him being a starting centre-half, let alone our captain. I don't know why we haven't given Bruno the armband already, but it's either his form changes or his form changes or he just gets dropped from the first team. And one or the other has to give, simply put, because we can't have, him playing constantly playing and not be able to deliver the performances we thought we'd get from a player of the price tag that we paid for him. So, yeah, I'd rather him get time off, see if he can find him his best form away from the pitch, and then bring it back with a new attitude, hopefully with a new vision to try and improve on the performances he's had recently. But it's been poor from him, to be honest. But I think it's not exactly his fault. I think the team all have a role to play, and at the end of the day, it's a team game. They should all take the blame for it.
I think you were very astute there with your time, and I don't know if Carlo managed to time that there, but I thought you did okay.
That's fine. That's a lot better than the 3-minute tirades I go on.
I think
all the 6 hours.
I thought you came across really well there, Ahmed. I do feel, and I absolutely agree with you to a large extent, that he hasn't been the man that he has been for England. You know, he had a very good Euros. I thought he was one of England's best players at the Euros. And, I think he's not really showcased that into his Manchester United form. And Fred, I'm going to come to you on this because Maguire, when he does play, sometimes he hasn't had Varane alongside it for a period of time. Sometimes it's been Bailly. Sometimes it's been Lindelof. I think Jones has had the odd appearance in alongside him at central defence. Does he need a strong and reliable centre-back partner alongside him to help him improve his game? Or is his own qualities just not there either?
I don't think you can get any more reliable or strong than Rafael Varane. So I wouldn't say it's that at all. I think it's his own game. He's had an abysmal season. I think you could put it initially down to a Euros hangover at the beginning of the year, but you can't make that excuse now. It's been far too long. Performances have been far below par. I just think that he was brought in by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I think he was a Mourinho signing. In those systems, they liked playing deep defences and then counter-attacking football. In that system or type of system, he's absolutely perfect. He doesn't have to use his pace. He's got cover. However, in this new system where we're looking to play a high line, he's simply not good enough. He hasn't got the pace. He's being exposed every single week. His positioning is just absolute, and decision making is absolutely dire. I have no idea what he's doing for some of the phases of play. I think he's been the cause of the last couple of goals in the last few games. I do think that he potentially is being made a little bit of a scapegoat, but some of it's warranted. Some of it he brings him amongst himself. He is our club captain after all, so all eyes and fingers point to him. It pisses me off with his stupid post-match interviews where he's just blaming everyone else, and it's the same thing on record every single game we lose, and he just doesn't. If he showed a bit more enthusiasm, then maybe the fans would warm to him, but that's not there, and if that's not there, and the performances are as shit as they have been, he's gonna get all that hostility aimed towards him. So I don't think it's just him in defence. I think Luke Shaw's been equally as bad this year, which is really surprising considering I think those two last year were probably our best two defenders, if not, there's an argument they were our best two players. So yeah, it's been an awful system. I think that if Ralph is to move upstairs, I can't see Maguire being the main centre-back option in the future.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a very interesting situation with Maguire. And John Kermode makes a very interesting point. Maguire is one of many players this season who has been way below par. I don't like to single out people because it's a team game, but a captain should be leading by example, and he hasn't. Stu, going to come to you next on this because got some stats here on Maguire. Since the game against Wolves on the 3rd of January, he was injured for that game. He was injured against Villa. He was on the bench for the game in the league. He played 20 minutes against Brentford. He played the full 90 against West Ham, the 120 minutes against Borough in the Cup, the 90 minutes against Burnley, and the 90 minutes against Southampton. Has he taken too long to come back? Was he not been given enough time, I should say, to come back from injury to get himself back into the team? Or is that just an excuse, looking at that statistics I just pointed out there?
No, unfortunately, there's a bit of an elephant in the room. There's two. And that's Rafael Varane, and David De Gea. And when you if you really look at the game, look at the defensive side of any team, you've got to look at positions. Now, Maguire's positional play this year has been absolutely woeful, but there are more than one occasion, and yesterday, unfortunately, Southampton goal was one of them, where Varane has been woefully out of position. And when you look at the goal, if you can remember the goal, if you can just visualize the goal itself. I'll just talk about the Southampton one. I'll talk about the Burnley one as well, because he was way out of position for Burnley. Middlesbrough. But if you talk about the goal yesterday, and look at where Varane was in his position to where Dalot was, to where Che Adams was. Varane actually looked over his shoulder to see where Che Adams was and then decided to press Eliusu. Now, the problem was he didn't need to press Eliusu because you've got Pogba, if he pulled his finger out of his arse, should have pressed Eliusu, and so should McTominay. If Varane had stepped back 2 yards and concentrated on Adams, Adams wouldn't have got in because Varane would have been able to turn around and get hold of him. As he didn't, the other phase of play is the De Gea phase of play. De Gea was 2 yards off his line. Now, agreed. Che Adams took the shot earlier than than most people would expect. But if De Gea had been 4 yards up, he'd have been able to narrow the angle. Okay, and this is a big issue. So if you remember the phase of play I'm talking about, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But the problem is, Grant, Maguire gets the blame for it. It's Maguire's fault. Well, Maguire was nowhere fucking near it. He didn't need to be. It was fucking Varane. Go back to the Middlesbrough goal. Everybody was banging on about the handball. He was in so much space that he'd taken it down. He would have crossed it anyway. And Varane was 10 yards away from him. Then realised what had happened. But Maguire gets the criticism. Now, the phase of play for the Burnley goal, McTominay was slow. So McTominay should have been closing Vigorst, whatever his name is, down. Didn't. So Maguire had to come to him. As soon as Maguire comes to him, Shaw should have stepped. Shaw didn't step. Maguire was weak in the tackle. Let's be clear. Maguire was weak in the tackle. But what he did, the ball then spins out to Rodriguez. Dalot was twiddling his fucking thumbs doing nothing. Okay. So Dalot didn't react. Shaw didn't react. McTominay didn't react. Maguire did. Varane at that particular time was in the right position. But the travelling distance, as soon as Rodriguez got the ball, was massive. If De Gea had come out 9 yards from his goal line to close Rodriguez down, you know, when Shaw came in and tried to slide tackle, he wouldn't have needed to do that. He could have then gone behind De Gea and gone on the goal line. So It's just Maguire. It isn't just Maguire, but everybody was blaming Maguire for those. He's
the captain. He should be calling those other players, saying, "McTominay, step up. Shaw, move forward. De Gea, get off your line."
Agreed.
That's why he's getting the most sticks, Stu.
Yeah, agreed. But the problem is, where does then? And you know what I'm going to say? The personal responsibility come from McTominay, Shaw, De Gea, Dalot. Not so much Varane on that particular one, but herein lies the issue. So fans are very, very short-sighted about specifics, but you've got to look at everything. You've got to look at the whole shebang, and that's your biggest issue. So people can talk about Maguire, and he's had a bad season. Don't get me wrong, he's had a bad season, but there are other culprits. There are other culprits that need digging out. Now, I'm going to get absolutely hammered for digging out Varane, but nobody can tell me I'm wrong. I mentioned, you were on the show with me, Carl. You were on the show with me. Do you remember the Newcastle one?
Yeah, I do personally disagree. I think if you could look at that defence and think Varane is one of the bigger problems there, I think it's very unfair.
I'm not saying it's one of the bigger problems. He is part of the problem. And what I'm saying is there's a group of fans that won't accept it. They just won't accept it. They can't see it and they won't see it. But everything that I've explained is true. Now, I know you're on the show with me, Carl, because you did say to me, I don't know whether Varane could have done it. It was the Newcastle goal at St James's Park when, was it Marquillo or whatever it is? The right back scored, if you remember.
Now.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was. I think it was Manquillo.
Manquillo.
I can't remember.
Yeah, and I said at the time that Varane shouldn't have come to him because as soon as Varane went to Saint-Maximin, he popped it off to Marquillo. Marquillo had enough of the angle to get the shot. And I said if he'd stood square on and come back 2 yards, Saint-Maximin's got a choice. He had three choices. He either shoots on goal, he attacks Varane, or he's got to attack Varane, but he'll never be able to pass to Marquillo because if you pass to Marquillo, Varane was too far deep for Marquillo to get a shot in. And all this is all about, you've got to be clever when you're defending. And I'll go back to Southampton again. If he had stayed where he was, he would have got hold of Che Adams or been a lot quicker to Che Adams. And as soon as he went to Alicio, or whatever his name is, he popped it off, didn't he? Straight away. As soon as Varane came in, he popped it off. Now, you were talking of a world-class defender here, but all you saw on Twitter was the Maguire two-step over by the far. I think you posted it, didn't you, Cal, as well?
It might have been. I think I put it in the chat, actually.
You did, yeah. I called it the Maguire two-step. Now, look, he got it wrong. He got it wrong there, but that's all I would say. I think you've got to look at it properly. And I'm not digging Varane out. I'm not digging Maguire out. I'm not digging Galop. I'm not digging Shaw out. But you've got to look at it as a defensive unit.
Although I'm not disagreeing with your points, Stu. I'm not disagreeing with your points at all. But I just think in comparison to the rest of the defence, I'd even say Varane doesn't even need to be mentioned. And that's my point. I think what you are saying is correct. But in comparison to the rest of the defence, I just don't think it needs to be argued. It needs to be pointed out. But I'll come on to that in a minute. I'll let you.
Yeah, there's a few anomalies I think with Varane, but week in week out, there's an issue with Maguire. There's a positioning issue. There's decision making. But like you said, Stu, the Twitter sphere will just focus on an individual. They don't look at the general shape. They don't look at people tracking back. They don't look at McTominay's positioning, Pogba tracking back. So
and you have to do that. But the other thing is, by the way, they're too far apart. They're not close enough. And
who's supposed to be the leader of those two, though?
Yeah.
The problem is you can look, and I've got experience in this. You can speak, you can shout, you can scream, but you've seen McTominay jog back, haven't we? You've mentioned it yourself, Callum, plenty of times, mate. You've seen him jog back.
Way too many times.
Yeah, you've seen Shaw look across the fucking line and not do anything. When Maguire going to say,
Stu, when Grant gets to me,
I'm actually coming to you next. I am coming to you next, Stu, because I've got a couple of comments and I want to come to you on this because there's some really interesting comments here. Andrew Wall says the issue with Maguire is twofold. His defending is letting the team down far too frequently. Almost gave a penalty away yesterday. But he says the biggest issue is his leadership. United need a player capable of inspiring others, one willing to fight and drag each other out of his T-bills up to the level. Is Maguire capable of this? And Hammer said, I think I mentioned this, the post-game issue did. Maguire makes too many dumb mistakes, and then his weaknesses in the game speed makes it possible to cover. So, Joey shot. Great to have Bobby and Wansley involved tonight on the show. He says, Harry is a weak link, and he says he hears you regarding Varane. So, you do have some supporters there. Stu, on that one?
It really is an observation. I'm not saying it just to be awkward, but I look at it, and Cal knows what I'm like. Cal knows I look at football as a whole. And I'm not saying Varane has had a bad season and Maguire's had a brilliant season because I'm not. I get it. I understand your viewpoints, guys. But there are some times where you've got to look at the bigger picture. But you know what I'm like, Cal. You know, I'm not being argumentative by any stretch of imagination.
No, I don't even necessarily disagree with you. I just think there's bigger points to make. But I'll make them in a second.
Well, Callum, I'm going to come to you because you don't have a right of reply on this because you've had a good interchange there with Stu. What's your own opinions on Maguire? Because the guys have made some very valid points. Is it an individual problem? Is it a unit problem? Is it a partnership problem? Is it all three?
I've said to Ben many times, me and Stu need our own show personally. But anyway, well, first I'm going to start off by apologising to Ahmed because I'm going to go on for a little while now. The first point I want to make before I even come to Maguire is the goalkeeper, David De Gea. He is. A lot of people seem to think he's burying us out with shit, and to an extent he is. He's making some brilliant saves. But the problem is David De Gea at the moment is making brilliant saves because of his own doing. His distribution as a goalkeeper in the modern game is nothing short of disgusting. It's just terrible. You go watch Alisson and Ederson, who play for Liverpool and Man City, our two biggest rivals, and you can put them in centre midfield for Man United. Their passing is brilliant. You then watch what De Gea does sometimes. He kicks the ball halfway up, not even to the centre circle, struggles sometimes, drops to the opposition's midfielder. They then come back out and he's forced to make some kind of world-class save to keep us in the game. And then he gets these claps and plaudits, David De Gea, and it winds me up because as good as the save is, he's a goalkeeper. And I don't want to come across like Roy Keane here, but that is his job, to make good saves. That's his number one job. And when they come from his own doing, you've got to start questioning that, especially when it comes from. And then you come to his next weakness. coming off the line, like Stu has just said. I made the point about Varane then, but he's bang on about De Gea. That Burnley goal came from Maguire. I don't care what anybody says. McTominay had a small part in it. Maguire was the main problem, I personally believe. But that still could have been solved by De Gea. But it wasn't, because he decided to superglue himself to the line or his own 6-yard box. If he'd have flew out the goal, he could have condensed the target. He could have stopped the line of target, and he could have possibly given himself a better chance to stop that goal. But he didn't, because he refuses and he's afraid to come off his line. So that's the first problem with our team. Then you come to Maguire. I've literally watched videos and TikToks and all that, and I've made a bloody list, right? As a United fan, a lot of people criticise Maguire, and I always refuse to do it. I really tried to hold it in because I thought, do you know what? He's done well for us. He's done very good for England. He's done arguably good for United. And I've never slated him. I've criticised him, but not to the stage what some people have. Today, the guy deserves lambasting to be a defender, because in the last 3 weeks, he's been abysmal. But I want to particularly focus on the Burnley game, because that's just the most recent game that I can think of. His 3 mistakes. We could go on about the Southampton game. You could probably do that as well. His lack of closing down, things like that. But I'm going to focus on the Burnley game, because some people will bring up referees, VAR. We played Burnley, who, by the way, are bottom of the league. I ain't going to mention VAR, because that could be a shambles in itself. But when people are relying on VAR to win you a game of football against Burnley, when you're Manchester United, no, not having it. Maguire made 3 mistakes in that Burnley goal. Stu brought one of them up before. McTominay refused to close down, or slowly close down, I should say.
Slowly, yeah.
Maguire, as a centre-back, can see that. Scream at him. Now, again, you can bring your personal responsibility about McTominay. McTominay does need a little bit of a talking to there. But then Maguire comes flying out of position to tackle. And honestly, you'd have thought that Weghorst was messy. He turned not one, but 2 players completely inside out, like they weren't even there, right? Honestly, Ahmed, you should have timed me this time, because I am absolutely.
I got you 3 minutes, mate.
Honestly, I'm glad he's timing me, because I am furious with Man United at the moment. Genuinely furious, because when I'm going out with mates, or when I'm watching at home, when I'm watching at home with my partner, and I'm screaming at the telly, and she then has to tell me off because I'm getting so annoyed with them. And then I have to tell her that these are multimillionaire footballers who can't even be asked to close a fucking football player down. It's so frustrating. But that was his first problem. He then gets turned inside out, absolutely turned inside out, because he makes the weakest arse tackle I've ever seen from a centre-back. Never mind a United centre-back. It's awful. And I know we always joke about Stu being a former footballer, but I couldn't imagine a player like Stu in a lower league playing like that. You would absolutely clatter him. You just wouldn't even be allowed to do that. Never mind being defender of Man United and captain of Man United. You'd never be allowed to do that, right? Third problem was he then runs back after him and goes, "Oh well, I might have gave him a penalty away, so I thought not giving a tackle away was the best option." Fucking hit him, smash into him, get the ball back. You've got a damn sight more chance of getting that ball back if you at least attempt to tackle than if you don't at all. I won't win the lottery unless I at least try and buy a ticket. It's as simple as that. But and now we go on to... I'm really sorry for how long I'm going on here, but I'm telling you, now we go on to after the game. Now we get VAR. Maguire was single-handedly responsible for why we did not win that match. I don't care what anybody says, but I believe that, and I'll die on that hill. Then you go after the game, and he gets interviewed for however many times this season. He says the exact same thing after the game. We have to look at ourselves. We have to show more accountability. We have to do more. How about you do more? How about you take a look in the mirror and show some damn responsibility for a change? Because that goal was your making. It was all your making. Now, you could start going on about the attackers not putting the chances away, which I guess you can half say. But in comparison, the defence wins you titles, Attack wins your games, right? And if the defence can't do its fucking job properly, then we are done. When you spend £80 million on a centre-back because he's English and got a big head and all that crap, we ain't getting anywhere. I'm sorry. It's the same shit every day, every week, every game, and I'm sick of hearing it. The guy can progress the ball and he's very good at attacking, but at the minute he's so far away from being a United starting centre-back. It's unbelievable, right? And it's really starting to cause an issue for the rest of the squad, because I can guarantee you the rest of that team are seeing how bad his performances are wondering why another centre-back. Why isn't Bailly getting a chance? Why isn't Lindelof playing? You know what I mean? There's no accountability. If I was Ronaldo or Cavani or Rashford or Elanga or Sancho, I'd be going, do you mean us that we need to be more accountable? Because if I was him, if I was one of those attackers in that dressing room, or Bruno, I'd be going, hey, what a word with you. You're our captain and you're trying to dig us out. It's disgraceful. And do you know what? I've defended him, but right now, I can't defend him. The guy needs to take a long, hard look at himself, because quite frankly, the guy, you're no captain. Absolutely no captain. And right now, you're not even a Man United player, because God knows what these performances are about. He's the captain, and he's supposed to lead by example, right? He's supposed to lead by example, and right now he couldn't fucking lead anything.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Callum, in what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, because I agree with you. And I would have smashed Vigor off the fucking park. Absolutely, I would have. I've absolutely smashed the fucker. And I just stood over him and fucking waved at him before I went back to my position, because that's what you've got to do. But he's not being... The problem, I think, is that... And it's not even confidence, because I don't agree with confidence in football. You build your own confidence. It's up to you to make yourself a better footballer. You know, you're right. The problem is, I just think that there's too much focus on him. There's way too much focus on him. And there needs to be a little bit more focus across the board. And there's one thing I will say. The forwards have got to do more at defending, actually. They've got to do way more defending from the top of the pitch. They've got to really be, chase their centre halves down, chase the midfielders down. We don't do enough of that. So you only concede a goal by progression from their back to our goal. And that starts from our front line. That doesn't help. But look, as a centre half, I can't disagree with what you were saying against Burnley. I just wanted to give a balanced view from my perspective.
That's what I was trying to say, Stu. I wasn't necessarily disagreeing with you at all. I just think there was much bigger issues that should have been more focused on than Varane. I don't think you were wrong. Because I personally think Varane is nowhere near the issue at the moment, and I think if anything, he's definitely number one best defender. So I think to bring him into it is maybe not wrong, but I just think it's slightly unfair.
There's obviously systematic issues, but Maguire, on an individual level, he's the individual that's making the most mistakes. That's why I will think is pointing towards him. But there is a systematic issue too.
I mean, there's also this page that I've actually wrote down. I've wrote a lot about Maguire.
Make us the last point. Make us the last point. So we move on.
It is. Luke Shaw needs mentioning as well at the moment.
Well, we're coming on to talk about Shaw, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's I know. That's why I didn't say anything.
Well, carry on, because I was going to come on to talk about Shaw next, because he's also been in the spotlight for being kind of culpable in a couple of the big goals that United have lost in recent weeks, particularly in that fullback area. And the question I want to ask everybody in here is: should Telles start the games for the rest of the season, and should United be really kind of looking towards an alternative area of that pitch going forward into the transfer window and into next season? Ahmed, I'll come back to you first of all on this.
Sure, for me, last season, best left back in the world, not even a doubt. He played with Rashford down that left-hand side so well. They connected with each other, created goals for each other. They were a thrill to watch, sat inside our homes for a long time. But I thought, again, he's another player that, for me, peaked during the Euros. And I think he had a little layoff with injury as well. Since then, Telles has taken that position and, ran with it. He's played very well. He scored a great goal against Villarreal. But he's making the position his own. He's made life incredibly difficult for Luke this season. I think Luke has had some occasions this year where I think he does need to look at them, like, a bit like Maguire, look at himself in the mirror, really, because I don't know, Luke the short of last season wouldn't make the mistakes he's making now, where he's literally the last man playing players on side when you could easily be organized, playing in organized defense, staying in one line, and not allowing runners to get in behind on level runs, or being the last man letting the player stay on side, for example, as he did at Burnley and yesterday. The trouble I have with him right now is that I think he just misses having that stable connection down that side. And with all this chopping and changing that's going on in front of him, I don't think it's limiting his creativity, but it's also meaning that he's doing a lot more defensive work, and I don't think he's exactly too used to that. But a left-back should really be doing this job consistently without complaining. You will always asked to defend no matter what, and if you have to bomb forward, you bomb forward. I just don't understand what is wrong with Luke, and he is another player that I think that needs to have get his head out of his backside, because Alex Telles will take that position and make it his own. I think he's motivated to take Shaw's spot. When he came to the club, we didn't consider him being number 2. We thought he'd be replacing Shaw. Shaw saw this and then got the kick up the backside he needed. But now I just think if Telles plays better and gets form in, every chance he gets ahead of Shaw in the team for me.
He's just so erratic, isn't he, Sean? I think you made some extremely good points there, Ahmed. A very stern assessment there, and I thought that was really good to hear from you on that. Fred, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, we've had a lot of talk about Telles coming in. He's been certainly looked, I think, quite dynamic when he's played. Maybe slightly better defensively, maybe Shaw slightly better going forward. But what do you think? Do you think United need to look at Telles for the rest of the season? And even if they get to the end of the season, going into the transfer window, do United need to actually get a first-choice left-back to displace either of those two players?
Yes, in short, they do. I don't think fullbacks on either side are good enough. It's all relative. Would any of our fullbacks get into the City, Liverpool, or Chelsea team? And you could even look beyond that. No is the answer. Luke Shaw, I agree with Ahmed. Last year he was fantastic, probably one of the best left-backs in the league. But it comes on to my next point. The problem with Shaw and the problem with most of our United players is, okay, on their day, they're good. The problem is, on their day is once every, in a blue moon. Shaw had one good season in 8 years, and that's simply not good enough. And I think Mourinho said it, and I think actually Hodgson said it when he was on England duty, that his decision-making, his positioning, and the mental side of his game is non-existent, or it's awful. And that shows. I mean, looking at the game on the weekend, there were so many times where Sancho was sort of close to the halfway line, no one in front of him. Shaw's just hangs back. He needs to be bombing down, overlapping, like I think he did it in Burnley for Pogba's goal, but he doesn't do it enough. He's got all the attributes. He's got the pace. He can defend. He can put a ball in, but it's knowing when to do it. It's the decision making that he just lacks, and he's again, like most of the other players in our team, he's not consistent enough. He needs to go, in my opinion. He's reached that age. He's been at the club for so long. He should be reaching an age now where reaching his peak is simply not good enough. I think Telles is a better option for the rest of the season. I think when he had a string of games together before he was injured, I think he has COVID currently, he looks good. He's got a very good sort of cross on him, as we all know. He's improved defensively, showing a lot more passion. And we've just looked deadlier and better when he's in the team. So, and the other thing is, I think Shaw and Maguire's relationship has just completely crumbled this year. I mean...
Well, it's very funny you mentioned that about Shaw, because Jarvis Cocker's come up with a good comment. Says, I think Shaw takes so much responsibility covering for Maguire. It's dragging him out of position again and again. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I mean, the amount of time, if one player goes forward, the other needs to cover, or your midfield needs to drop. At the moment, the two of them are just in parallel. They're both going forward. I think there was a situation yesterday where both of them were just sort of in the attacking third, and they both went for the ball, and obviously Southampton just countered us, and Armstrong's bloody clean through in, and I think he had a chance and he hit the side netting.
Yes, that's right.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough. That left side, we're just getting exposed every game, and people are targeting us. And if we're Tellez and Lindelof must be, God knows what they're thinking to be sat on the bench by these two.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I think you gave some very good points there as well. Callum, I'm going to come back to you next because I love this dynamic you're having with Stuart, particularly on the show tonight. I'm going to put this comment back up, and I know you were pointing down at this earlier on. Sean needs to be sold in the summer. 8 years at the club is enough. He has failed. Away you go with yourself.
Do you know what? It's good to be back. He's right. Fred just mentioned it as well, if I'm honest, about the 8 years thing. But I wanted to just come back to something Ahmed said. He said, I can't remember what he said word for word, but he said something like, I want Luke just to get back to normal. Is this not the normal Luke Shaw? 6 good months in 8 years is not good. Mm-hmm. When we signed him, he was meant to be England's next left-back for the next 15, 20 years of his career. And quite frankly, I don't think he'd even make England reserves at this stage. He was brilliant last season, and you're 100% correct. He probably was the best left-back in the league, and maybe arguably even in Europe last season. But he's gone back to the same old. His decisions are terrible. His progression of the ball sometimes is really lacking. His crosses seem to just be nowhere near the level of Cancelo's, Andrew Robertson's. I know Trent's not a left-back, but Alexander-Arnold. And at this point, I actually said a while ago, and I'll again die on this hill, I believe Tellez is better than Luke Shaw. And I do not care what anyone says. Tellez, when he played in Portugal, tore it up. Now, I guess the whole, you can't compare the Portuguese league to the Premier League. I just did. I don't care. Tellez is better than Luke Shaw. He is 100% better than Luke Shaw. And I believe if Tellez was just to slightly work on his defensive work that little bit much more, Luke Shaw won't get in the team. The only reason why Luke Shaw played the other night was because Tellez had COVID. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. The only reason why McTominay is probably the sole number 6 at the moment is because Fred had COVID. I give these players a benefit of the doubt. And maybe, do you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a British bias. Maybe it is. Maybe there is that little bit in me that it's just like, maybe it's even an academy bias. I don't know with McTominay and other players, but sure, I have backed him. And again, I feel like last season we finally might have thought, do you know what? He's finally here. That young left back we all thought we were signing, he's arrived. And after the Euros, here we are again. We're back to we've got nothing on the left. But I think you said it before. It might be you, Ahmed, or it was you, Fred. But he wants that connection on the left. Rashford's big garbage as well. That's what I mean. There just seems to be no cohesion at all in the squad, and unfortunately, Shaw's no good either. But Jarvis is right. He's constantly covering a centre back. He's constantly having to cover Maguire. But that doesn't mean it's always Maguire. You see Luke Shaw constantly out of position. Same problem with Galop. He's constantly out of position. The entire back line is just... It's not coaching. It's borderline amateurish.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Do you remember the Everton goal earlier in the season when...
yes!
Demarai Gray, honestly...
Demarai Gray, yes.
Bombshell. The one thing can I just make a quick point?
Go for it.
Yes, he's been 8 years. The leg break, I think we can give him a bit of leeway early on because that obviously took a few years off.
Yeah,
but
you can
that's
give
no
him leeway
excuse.
for that early on.
That's no excuse,
on,
for the last few years. But equally, look at the club. Maguire. We're talking about Maguire and Shaw. We've spent 80 million, made Maguire the most expensive defender in the world. And we also broke the record for, I think it was a teenage transfer record in the world. I don't know if it was the world or in the UK, I'm sure, when we signed him. And it just shows how, look at it. It just shows our recruitment. Part of it's down to the player, but part of it's down to the club. But it's very ironic that we're talking about those two.
Yeah, no, very much so, and I think it was great for you to come in on that, Fred. I mean, Stu, it's now time for you to have your say on this as well, because I'm enjoying the dynamic with everybody tonight, but particularly you and Callum, Stu, because I think there's a lot of good discussion you guys are having. Fred and Ahmed making great points as well. But Luke Shaw, right? And I'm going to go back to something that Ahmed said earlier on. In an attacking sense, he was talking about that relationship with someone on the left-hand side. Now, I know yesterday, particularly the South Africa game, Sancho was started off there, then he switched, and then Rashford went out there. And I thought there was too much chopping and changing. They wanted to have a bit of fluidity there, but it never really worked out. What's your feeling on that? Because we've sort of talked a lot about the defensive side of things, but is that attacking side where we're all talking now about fullbacks getting up to support? We're seeing it with Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. We're seeing it with Cancelo at Manchester City. We're seeing it with the Chelsea fullbacks over the years. Is that something that United just have not got the balance right at all in an attacking sense as well as defensively?
Well, look, first of all, you've got to play to your own strengths. That's number one. So you don't copy any other player. You don't try and be a Robertson. You don't try and be a Cancelo. You don't try and be any of those players. You try and be your own player. Secondly, as a fullback, you operate in 4 segments. You operate in the segments to your left, the segment to your right. And what I mean by that is your main positional sense is pretty much parallel with the 18-yard box on your side. And the reason you stand there is that if they're coming through the middle, you can step across 5 yards and close that gap. If they're attacking you down the right, as Luke Shaw, the left back, you can step across 5 yards and show him down the left. That's why you stand within the vicinity of the corner of the 18-yard box. It isn't fucking rocket science, okay? It really isn't. The problem you've got is that Luke Shaw is trying to be a Robertson. He's trying to be a Cancelo. He's trying to be a player that he's not. The primary focus of a fullback is to defend. Number one, forget attacking. That is your primary focus. And what Ahmad was talking about in the relationship that you have, we'll call it the wide player. It used to be a winger. Back when I started playing, it was a 4-4-2. So you had your fullback and then your winger. That relationship, Callum was right. You're all right, actually, because you all three touched on it. Every single one of you is right. It's fucking crucial. Absolutely crucial. And all you do is talk to your centre half, to your right, and your winger, your wide player. You don't necessarily deal with the midfielder because that's done by the 2 centre halves. Okay. And you are discussing at any one time, I need you to drop 5 yards. I need you to push 10 yards. They're not attacking us at the minute. I'm quicker than him. Conversations of that nature is what it's all about. But the key thing is this. If I fucking go past you, I need you in behind me. I don't need you at left back. I need you in behind me. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've gone. So I'm you at that point. I'm the one that's doing the attacking. So I need you just to cover me. And as soon as I run back past you again, then you can resume your position. That isn't happening. Okay. With regards to covering, you're all right, but he's just like a fucking, he's a Fred. When he starts to chase the ball, he's a fucking Fred. He didn't need to chase. Who was it?
But it was an old Broya, was it? He was having a real trouble against him.
He didn't need to fucking chase him halfway across the pitch. He should have said, Broya's coming over. Somebody deal with him. McTominay, deal with him. Somebody deal with him. This is my position here. You've got to hold your position as a fullback. You have to hold your position as a centre half, but you must hold your position as a fullback. So you're all right, lads. Every single one of you. Tellez is a miles better fullback than Shaw on form right now. But even Tellez sometimes, Calvin, you'll admit this, you will concede it, is too far out of position on the odd occasion.
Just quickly before you have a
defensively.
Before Carl has a response on that, I want to read Jarvis's comment. He says, what I like about Tellez is his shrewdness. It's a character our team lacks. Carl, you have your right to reply on that comment, and also Stu. Sorry. Just wanted to say that comment.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Tellez. I think Tellez actually could still be a lot better as well. I think there is something about him. He's very clever. He's very shrewd. He knows what he's doing. He knows when to go forward. But Stu, you're right. Like I did make the point before. To be fair,
you did.
If he just improved that little bit defensively, I don't see how Shaw gets anywhere near the team. I really don't. And the thing is, Tellez was brought last summer. Yeah, last summer. Like last year, you know what I mean? Last year, the year before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To improve Shaw. And to an extent, he did. Shaw ended up going on to be the best left back in the league that season, got his England place, scored in the final of the Euros, for God's sake.
Yes.
Yeah, opening goal, 38.
Opening goal. I mean, for Christ's sake, it is quite annoying showing how good he could be.
Yeah.
But it just comes across maybe it was just form, and that's why he was so good.
Yeah.
I do believe if Tellers is to just improve that little bit defensively, get that positional awareness in his head, in his brain, to know how to go forward, how to stay back, how to mark the right play, how to be where he needs to be at the right time. Shaw doesn't get near the team. And the thing is, Tellez was brought to make Shaw better, but he was also brought to make Shaw be the second left back, not the number one. And right now, and in a sense, last season he did his job, and this season he's doing his job. But the unfortunate thing for Luke Shaw is if in his second season Tellers continues to do his job, we might genuinely see the end of Luke Shaw at Man United.
No, I think you're right. I mean, both our actually Dallo's the same. Both our fullbacks don't operate with redundancy. What I mean by that is they don't give themselves enough yardage to get across and be where they need to be at any given time. They're not enabled for whatever reason. They can't see the pattern of play developing in front of them. And there's, and you know as well as I did, Carl, it's basic one-on-one. As soon as the ball is transferred out to your wing, whether it's left or right, doesn't really matter. You step over 2 or 3 yards, so you're in that position.
I mean, you just go like that. The whole team moves like that.
It just isn't rocket science, and they seem to be struggling with that for some reason. Sorry, Darren.
No, you're absolutely fine, Stuart. I really enjoy the dynamic between you two in particular. And we're going to move on to our next topic in this defensive area. And it was something that Callum brought up earlier on. And I'll come back to him last in this discussion because we talked a little bit about De Gea and also a lot of situation about whether, it's been a bit of a juxtaposition with De Gea. He's been United's best player at times this season, but has he also been a bit of a problem with his distribution and stuff? And Ahmed, I'm going to come back to you on this because one thing that really annoys me about De Gea, and this is just a personal gripe I have, is that he makes some really good saves with his feet, but he doesn't make many saves with his hands. And I want to come to you on this because the goal that Southampton scored yesterday from Shea Adams, should he have maybe done better with it?
Yes, without a doubt. Once upon a time, I played in goal, and this was, it's a weird analogy to go on, but it's a point to this. I was put in goal. I'm 5'9", but I don't mind going in because I can certainly make a save or two. There's a shot that comes from roughly somewhere similar to where Adams struck yesterday, and I've more or less gone to die for it. What happens if I die for it? I push it away from goal. David De Gea is pretty much rooted to his spot and lets it run through his legs. The one thing that's annoyed me about David De Gea since he's come to Manchester United is that he cannot use his hands when he needs to use his hands. When it comes to his distribution, and this is why I've argued for Dean to play more this season, nowadays, a progressively forward-thinking goalkeeper who's good with his feet is important to any team. And if David cannot do the simple task of getting the ball to a teammate successfully when delivered possession, you do start to wonder, is it right for him to keep playing in goal while making all these wonderful saves and collecting clean sheets and everything? There won't be much point to if he's not contributing to the overall build-up of a United attack. Because really, we give the ball to him more than we give it to our forwards in games. And it gets to the point where, really, when do you ask yourself, how long can we have David being our goalkeeper if he simply cannot be able to pass the ball from one man to another? He's got to be able to learn this. And this is why he doesn't play for Spain, really. This is why he doesn't play for Spain. He prefers Unai Simon, Luis Enrique, because he can pass the ball. He progressively gets attacks going from inside his penalty area, while David, when he tried to do that, can't. And it's mainly why he doesn't get matched for Spain anymore. So he's got to start improving that. Otherwise, I think D should start more games for United rather than being on the bench.
Yeah, no, intriguing points. And Fred, just to kind of counteract that a little bit, I think I read a stat yesterday. I think it was Ian Dark that mentioned this on commentary. De Gea's made the most saves of any goalkeeper in the Premier League. I mean, ultimately, the aim of a goalkeeper is to stop the ball go to the back of an opposition net, isn't it? I mean, De Gea has made a lot of big saves for Manchester United this season, but Ahmed's made some really interesting points, particularly on starting attacks. The goalkeeper now, really the development of the goalkeeper, I think it was David Priest who was mentioning this in some other discussions I've listened to earlier on over the last couple of months. The role of the goalkeeper really has evolved, hasn't it? Is that something that De Gea maybe hasn't quite cottoned onto? Is it something that United need to do going forward, and maybe that's where Henderson could come into play?
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the role of a goalkeeper has changed in recent years. Can I just firstly say I disagree on Ahmed on a few things. I think he's very good at actually with his hands. We saw a lot more of De Gea saving with his feet. 5 to 8 plus years ago. I think he's improved on that recently. I also think that he would be playing for the Spain team. I think there's a bit more to it, politically speaking, in terms of Enrique being the manager and favouring Basque players. With De Gea, he's one of the best shot stoppers in the world. But the problem with United is we should be stopping the shots, and we don't. It's that old saying. I don't think there's any coincidence that De Gea has his best season when the team has one of their worst seasons. And yeah, his distribution, he's never been fantastic at distribution. His medium to long kicking is pretty average. And the game has changed, like Callum said. Ederson, Alisson's, even your Pickfords, they can ping a pass now. They can actually, I think they train with the outfield players in some training drills. That's how good they are with their feet now. But there's an opportunity cost, isn't there? Because if we don't kick long, we have to play from the back, and we can't play from the back. I mean, Maguire, we haven't got the midfielders. The amount of goals we leaked, I think, a couple of seasons ago when Pereira had to come deep, or Fred would come deep from playing up in the back, and a heavy touch would just lead to a goal. I think it was Wolves a couple of years ago. We can't play from the back, so we're having to go long. That's the problem. And obviously on the weekend, it was very notable. They were just kicking it out. I think one of them, he just kicked it straight at Romeu. And on another day, they could have scored. But it is a problem.
That's what I was on about before, Brad.
Yeah.
That's what I was on about before.
Do I think Dean Henderson's the answer? No, I don't. I think, yeah, he's probably better in the distribution area, but I think then he lacks in, other areas compared to De Gea. So we can definitely upgrade the keeper. I think we should look into that in the next few years, and I think we will as well. But the game has changed. He was good when we bought him and what we bought him for. It all depends on the style of play that we're trying to implement, and I think the new manager will have a big say on that.
Yeah, and the reason I kind of mentioned those comments to you, Fred, is because I know that it was really commented on Match of the Day yesterday with, I think it was Janus and Danny Murphy were really looking at the goalkeeping position, and, we all have our views on Match of the Day and all that, but it was really interesting to see the dynamics they were talking about that. And Stu, I'm going to come to you next because you've been extremely vocal in the past on De Gea. Henderson, when he played in the game against Middlesbrough, he definitely played that more sweeper keeper role. We've seen Manuel Neuer do it so very well for Bayern Munich. The guys have already talked about Ederson and Alisson over the years. What's your stance on De Gea?
So, look, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but there you go. Look, the game has changed, but actually the art of goalkeeping hasn't, because you're there to save, you're there to stop goals. Whether you're good with your feet or good with your hands, it doesn't really matter. And I'm not a goalkeeper, by the way. I've never stood between the sticks here, so I have no knowledge of what it's like. Ahmed's played in goal. I haven't. So,
I have, and I've been rubbish. That's why I wear glasses.
There you go. And I know we've got a couple of goalkeepers in the chat, and they'll probably tell me. But what I'm looking for is a defender, is a goalkeeper that will command his box. I'm not just talking about the 6-yard line. I'm talking about his whole box. So when he's coming for a corner, and I've said this before, if he's got to punch me out the way to get to the ball, fucking hit me. I don't care. I need you to come and claim, because people know, fans know, players know that De Gea is weak. All right, Cal was right. It's a tough word, isn't it, Cal? Weak, but he's weak. Cal was spot on, right? And you can't have a weak goalkeeper. You need an absolute nutter in there who will take a kick in the face. He will take a headbutt in the face, because that's what football's about. De Gea, as the guys have said, Fred in particular, is a world-class shot stopper. He's probably the best in the business at shot stopping. You can't be that anymore. You can't just do that. Look, again, when I started playing, I didn't give a fuck whether the goalkeeper could dribble 10 yards out of his box and put a pinpoint pass like an Edison or an Allington. I don't care. What can you do? Can you save us when we need it? And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a goalkeeper who's got that aggression. I'm looking for a goalkeeper who's not afraid to come and claim. And unfortunately, De Gea is that. Is he a great goalkeeper? Absolutely. But is he a brave goalkeeper? No, he's not. Now, look, I think Henderson's a braver goalkeeper. That's my opinion. I don't know. As I say, I'm not a goalkeeper, but I think Henderson's a braver goalkeeper. But if I put myself and I stand between the sticks, now, as much as I love a tackle, as much as I love a scrap or whatever, am I going to go and slide in and have my face where a stud is? I don't know as a goalkeeper, because you don't need to do it as a centre half so much. You headbutt people's heads or you headbutt people's shoulders, etc., etc., etc. So I may be being harsh, and people will tell me if I'm being harsh, but I'm looking for somebody. I would be more comfortable as a goal, as a defender, looking over my shoulder and De Gea's on the 12 yards out of his goal, ready to collect. Or I'm going into a corner and De Gea's pushing me out the way, getting hold of me to punch the ball. That's where I'm comfortable with a goalkeeper. I don't think De Gea does that.
No, I think that's a really interesting point you make there. And, we've talked about this so often on this chat tonight and also in the past about how the goalkeeping situation has evolved over time. United have had some really strong goalkeepers over the years, like Edwin van der Sar, Peter Schmeichel, loads of others over the years. Callum, you made this point earlier on in the show about De Gea, and you were very critical of De Gea earlier on the chat, so it's only fair that you have the last word on this. I mean, where do you sort of sit with Henderson? Do you think he should be the number one from now till the end of the season and beyond? Or do United need to go into the market after the season is over and need to get in an outstanding goalkeeper? I mean, there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about guys like Donnarumma being in the mix, wasn't there? And there was a load of other keepers being talked about and kind of spoken of. What's your take?
I feel like I'm very harsh on De Gea. It's only because I was such a fan of him. But I think his issues are glaringly obvious at the moment, and I think they've come to fruition a lot more because of how good he's being, if you know what I mean. So his shot stopping is brilliant. It probably is the best in the world. But again, without sounding like Roy Keane, that is quite literally his only job, to stop shots. If he's good at it, then as a goalkeeper, every single goalkeeper who plays football should be good at shot stopping, really. He's weak. I can't remember the last time I saw him caught across. He punches every single one of them. Every single one of them. His save percentages, and he's got probably the most saves in Europe. Okay. That's a lot of them might be from his own doing, from his poor distribution. Because
he made some big saves, particularly against Atalanta, didn't he, at 2-1 in that Champions League game? And remember, we went on to win that game. And that, I thought, was a big game in that Champions League group. I wanted to that was a main that I thought that really helped United qualify at the group. Sorry to jump across, but that was a big thing about what I wanted to say.
Don't get me wrong. He does have good games for United. Of course he does. I don't know if Henderson is the answer. The only way to find out is giving him a go. He's repeatedly said that he believes he's good enough for Man United. He's come from the academy. He loves the club. So, and a lot of people go, "Oh, well, you give the academy lads less stick." Well, yeah, they probably do deserve more of a chance because of who they are. I don't know whether that's just maybe a Mancunian thing or an English thing or even a British thing. But they do deserve more of a chance, I believe, and more of a leeway from the fans. So to find out if Henderson's good enough, he needs a season in goal, half a season in goal.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He had a little bit of time at the end of, I think it was last season or the season before. I don't particularly think he was bad. I think it's quite unfair that he's not gone out on loan. as a football player, it's quite unfair that he's not gone out on loan. You know, he still earns a lot of money, so it's not unfair in that way. But, you know, the same problems with De Gea have been there for a very long time, and they should have been addressed a long time ago. The guy doesn't command his area. He never comes off his line. He doesn't come off his line for corners or crosses when he should do, which then causes a pickle for Maguire and Lindelof, or Maguire and Varane, or whoever who's playing. His distribution's poor, and then he gets a Player of the Month shout when he makes a good save from something that would have never happened had he not done what he did at the start of that phase of play. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, his passing's poor. It goes nowhere near the halfway line. And then he ends up making a great save. And it's like, yeah, well done, but that shouldn't have had to have happened in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I do like De Gea, don't get me wrong. I just wish people would stop going, oh, he's Player of the Year, Player of the Month, because at the end of the day, he isn't. He's just doing what he's supposed to, but a lot of the time he's doing what he's supposed to because of his own problems.
I mean, I personally feel, and I having played a bit of time in goal before I wore glasses, and I'm sure Ahmed will agree with this as well, a goalkeeper's a very lonely place, isn't it? Because you could be the hero one game, and then when you make a blunder, you're seen as the first scapegoat of the team. You're the last line of defence to try and stop a team scoring, and it can be a really lonely place. But the guys who made their points on De Gea and Henderson, and it's really interesting to make those points. Stu, come on.
Yeah, I just want to ask you something. As a goalkeeper, then, I've always advocated that the quartet, the CDM, the two centrals and the goalkeeper, they're the strongest point. That's the linchpin of your team.
Yes.
Do you not think then De Gea is also, because you haven't touched on this, Carl, lets himself down with his lack of vocalism?
Well, I think it's a collective. Can I just come in before Calm comes out? I think it's a collective throughout the entire five. You know, you got the setup, you've got the goalkeeper, the back four, and maybe even where there is McTominay, where there is Fred. I think they all collectively have to be working a little bit better. Sorry, Callum, I wanted to just say my own thoughts on that.
To be fair, Grant, you're probably right. I think it's a collective with a lot of them, but I think you're probably right as well, Stu, in terms of crossing, corners, things like that. The goalkeeper commands that area. Forget your captain, forget your centre backs, forget ever. That box is his home, and that is where he owns. You do as I say, and to be fair, I can only comment on this as an outside looking in, as a fan, because I'm not on that football pitch.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like he's vocal enough. He could be.
That's what I think.
And he could be. Yeah. No, yeah, and you, to be fair, Stu, you're probably right to think that. But again, you kind of got to yourself go. You've just got to say it with, you know, looking from the outside as well, because you can say it as you see it, and I will be very much inclined to agree that I don't think he's vocal enough. You've then got to be careful with. In terms of footballing ability, we can see on the pitch.
Yeah.
But when you can see the vocalness of it, you do wonder, can you comment on it? Because you kind of don't know. You can't hear him, you can't see it yourself, so you don't know. So that one, I'd be a bit more leaning towards giving a bit of leeway. I do probably agree. But yeah, I wouldn't make that point myself just because I wouldn't comment on something that I don't know about, really.
Yeah. Now, Ahmed, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah. For the last two games, I've watched two different teams play Tottenham, where I work, and Southampton's goalkeeper, that like Fraser Forster, today Jose Sarr. Different keepers, different styles. One's a shot stopper. One is very much a languished but commanding figure in their penalty area. Now, I know they're not expected to be of the standard of United keeper that De Gea is, but the points you made about him not being brave enough, not being commanding enough, he's poles apart when it comes to being the loud physical presence inside his penalty area. For a lot of the occasions this week, anytime a ball goes into the box, Forster or Jose Sarr calls for it, they get it. No one is in front of them, no one's around them. As long as they are free to challenge for the ball, hands up, hands up, catch it, both hands. Don't have any problems with it. Waste time if they have to, or get an attack going straight away. There's confidence.
Yeah, they're clever, aren't they?
Yeah, they're clever. Those are goalkeepers that have experience. They've got every trick in the book. They're patient. They don't rush things. David is not that kind of keeper who is exactly patient. He's always got to think quickly rather than think one step later than at the time. He should really just start to slow progressively his game down a little bit. Focus on the shot stopping, of course, but I'm looking at those two keepers and thinking they're miles better than De Gea when we're thinking about their all-round play, not just shot stopping. And today, Jose Sá picked up a clean sheet, made 7 saves in that game against Tottenham. He looks amazing, and that defense helped him as well. They were communicating, they were vocal, they were very organised. Yeah,
Do you know what, though, Ahmed?
all that there is what I don't have.
Sorry,
Ahmed, you're absolutely right, though, as well in that. But it's bigger than that as well, because for example, you just use Sá, Jose Sá, however you say his name, and he was a steal from Olympiacos.
Yeah.
These players who are so good seem to be being picked up by these teams who are more than good enough to play for United. Yet we are never, ever anywhere near them, right? But going on to the other point about De Gea is it's bigger than that, because his collecting of crosses and corners, it's never a strong punch. It's always a bit of a snatch just to get it a little bit away. It's almost like he's a bit scared of it being in his 6-yard box. He just goes, "Oh, I don't want it," and that's a problem. But then you go to his distribution. You look at the attacks nowadays. Going back to what Stu said before, goalkeepers, the number one job of them is old-fashioned way of going, keep that ball out of the net, right? But as time moves on, it has now become something else. It's starting attacks. It's being better with the ball at the feet.
It's showing awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God,
and the thing is, the start of an attack nowadays doesn't come from the midfield, or it doesn't come from it comes from the ball being at that goalkeeper's feet.
Yeah.
And it could be a 30-pass move. I'm not saying every team does this, of course, but for quite a few teams now, being that goalkeeper is almost being as important as being that central attacking midfield player. That playmaker in the middle of the park who can create a chance. Being a good goalkeeper with the ability to do well with the ball at your feet is now becoming so integral to the game of football that De Gea being there and having this problem is almost becoming a problem for the entire team.
Yeah.
Because he can't set these attacks up.
Yeah, I'm gonna step in here because there's one last thing I want to say, and I'm gonna let Fred come in on this because he's just mentioned an interesting point. You think there's more problems than De Gea? And I just want you to have the last say this before we move on to our final topic.
Yeah, I just playing devil's advocate. De Gea is a problem.
It's the nature of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's a long list of issues before we should be looking at De Gea's position. And then we must remember he has won the league at us. He has been at us. He's been a stalwart for 10 years now, I think. He's one of our most experienced players. I think this season, although there is a link between the goalkeeper and the defence, but I think the defence, especially the midfield, are bigger areas of concern, and areas there are areas in the squad that need addressing first and foremost, more so than the goalie. But we can definitely upgrade on him, no doubt about that.
I think you're right there.
Should look to.
But I would point out, by the way, as a centre half, you're having to probably do 10 or 15, maybe even 20% more headers. You've got to win more ball in the air when De Gea is between the posts, coming from corners, free kicks, etc.
Absolutely. And if we were having this conversation last season, Stu, when we, I think a third of our goals were set pieces, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Then they would definitely be prevalent. This year, there's been a few instances, but I think the midfield,
just another area
Fullback,
to consider. Is it? You are right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up Jarvis's comment, though. I mean, he's talking about an absolute nutter in Harold Schumacher. Oh, the German keeper, Jesus Christ. Even I'd give him a white. He was an absolute nutter.
Yeah, he certainly was. And I think we've and the reason I ended with Fred there because he's made a very interesting point, which leads us on to our sort of final section, which is talking about the defence, the midfield, being bigger areas of concern. And one last thing we wanted to really talk about on this episode of the show tonight is the yet again ever continuing dilemma, problem, issue, whatever you want to call it, of Scott McTominay, currently playing as our number 6. Is he supposed to be the screener in our back 4? Is he failing to adapt to what Ralph Rangnick is really wanting as that number 6? I mean, Fred, I'll come back to you because you kind of mentioned this for a start on the defensive issues. What's your feeling on McTominay? Because I have never seen a Manchester United supporter group, from my point of view at least, be so split down the middle on whether McTominay is good or not good for Man United. What's your thoughts?
I think McTominay's got a lot of unwarranted stick this season. I think he's improved. He's improving. There's a lot of holes in his game that he needs to improve on. I think under Ralph, he's actually been one of the players who have improved the most. The only thing I'd say is he like some others, he's being asked to do a job that is not his job. He's not a 6. I think most of the fan base is agreed on that he's a box-to-box midfielder, and that's his best position going forward. But we haven't got that player, the player doing the job that he's doing in the squad. Matic can't do it anymore. And then apart from that, there is no one else. So I think he is improving. But I think the midfield, especially the last few games where it's been Bruno, Pogba, McTominay, I think I like the setup, but off the ball is atrocious. And I think we can look beyond the midfield. We just look at the rest of the squad. With the ball, we're brilliant. Likewise with Pogba. Pogba has been fantastic since he's come back from injury. Off the ball, it is abysmal. If you actually rewatch the games and look at the effort, the lack of tracking back, Bruno is just Bruno. I don't know if it's Bruno's just doing what he wants, or if Ralph's giving him, the entitlement to roam and across the pitch, but he's running everywhere. He's leaving holes in midfield. Pogba's static. He's just standing still. When he's got the ball, he's fantastic. He'll play people through. He took his goal well against Burnley. Off the ball, there's no tracking back. McTominay. When McTominay has the ball, these triangles, these 1-2s, they don't exist because our players are standing still. And I don't really. I haven't watched Match of the Day a lot in this season for obvious reasons, but I did watch it on the weekend, and they showed a clip of our players standing still and attack. They offered no attacking impetus. The lack of tracking back was disgusting compared to Southampton. I think going back to McTominay, I'm going a bit off.
No, good, okay.
Yeah, he's square pegs in round holes, isn't it? He's doing okay. That's not he's not. Is he the future of our midfield? Probably not. I think I think it's quite evident that we're looking to upgrade in that area. Whether it's going to be, whether Ralph or the next manager wants to have that single pivot or have two, I don't know. But the midfield is just so weak. We're losing every single battle. But equally, it's just the players. They're just off the ball is non-existent, and we're not going to win any game. I think it's like the 80-20 rule, isn't it? You're 80% of the game, you haven't got the ball. So I don't know. I just don't think the players are fit enough as well. Maybe they're not adhering to Ralph's training sessions, but we're losing all the midfield battles. McTominay's getting a lot of stick, but it's not just him; it's the others as well.
You make a really good point there on fitness, and Ahmed, I'm going to come to you next on this because McTominay, I always feel, certainly as a Scottish fan and also as a Manchester United fan, when I see him at international level, when he plays for Steve Clarke, he plays in a back three. For Man United, he's been asked to play a range of different positions. I think I see somebody in this comments actually saying that I like McTominay as attacking midfielder. I mean, what do we think about McTominay? Because as I said right at the top of this discussion when I said to Fred, I have never seen a Manchester United support base so divided about whether McTominay is good enough to play for Manchester United. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts on Scott are simple, really. Academy graduates are bred to be able to understand what it takes to play for the club, no matter what position they play in. And Scott McTominay can be classified really as like the ultimate utility man because Steve Clarke dispenses him as a third man in the back three for Scotland. He works well in that formation. He does a very good job. But for Manchester United, he becomes this all-round number 8, number 4, number 6. He's everything. The trouble is, there's just, I think for me, you just don't know what his best position is on the pitch. Sometimes you'll think he's a great number 6 because he wins the ball. He manages to help the team defensively, but he can't progress the ball forwards too well. And everyone who knows by now that dynamic number 6, the Makaleles of the world, the Kantes, and even at a push, the Fabinhos are always good sweepers, cleaners in the game. They always win the ball and get it moving forward. McTominay doesn't do that particularly well. Then you think about his goal scoring ability. He's great from range. He can score from outside the box. He's done well.
He scored a header against Villa, didn't he? He scored a header against Villa.
Yeah, very good header as well. But look, with McTominay, for me, I find that unless you give him what he wants, I think what he wants is to be that 3-8 in a 3-man midfield, a bit like what Bruno Fernandes is. But we can't exactly play 2 3-8s if we don't have someone holding behind. And that's why he's there playing with Pogba now in the 2, because we cannot allow the room around our midfield to be suffocated by pressing forwards for opposition teams. This is a common practice now. Pogba's lazy. We know this already. So we can't expect him to do too much in trying to recover the ball. So the axe falls on McTominay. And without Fred, who adds energy to every game he plays alongside McTominay, you lose a bit of that mobility in the pivot, the so-called pivot, as we like to say. So unless you give him I really want to see, and I think a lot of fans who I think are a little bit more forward-thinking want to see him become a player that can do both come back and push forward. But we obviously, as we've said, stressed many a time, we need that person to be in the hole to stop those attacks coming forward so that he's free to do what he wants up the pitch. But if he gets the opportunity, he's got to grasp it. And look, for Scotland, he's amazing. But for United, he's got too many things. He's got too many heads pegs in round holes. He's got to fix them.
Can I just quickly add?
Go on.
I think McTominay is being really stitched up, shall we say, by the wide players, Sancho and Rashford, not tracking back. I mean, there were so many times on the weekend where our midfield's just getting overloaded, as well as the fullbacks, and he's it's two or three players on McTominay. So it's not just Bruno and Pogba not tracking back; it's also Sancho and Rashford, and it's hindering his play.
Yeah, interesting points you make. And Apex had a couple of interesting points there. I just took one of them down, but he says, I really like McTominay. He is great as a target man. He's good with his head, and he likes to lay off, and he can shoot. Those are his traits. Do you think he mentioned earlier on? He's better utilised than number 10, or as a Fellaini in the box. That's all he has. As an agent player, seeing that midfield questions, leadership. I mean, Stu, a lot of United fans have been really irked and really angered by the so-called McFred situation in midfield. We saw Pogba play there yesterday with Fernandes in there. We've seen Matic play in there at times. Is McTominay sometimes, we talked about this earlier on, is he his own worst enemy at times? Because Fred is in that job maybe to do a role that he can do? Or do you feel that, as Ahmed said earlier on, McTominay's role isn't defined a little bit and he's kind of struggling to find what his best position is?
I'll be brief on this one, believe it or not. But look, a CDM is he waves the baton, okay, for your pattern of play. So he decides whether we speed the play up that's what a CDM should do, or we keep it to a minimum. We keep it slow. Okay. The problem that you've got on that pitch is very, very simple. Pogba and Bruno won't listen to him. Period. They don't listen to him. It doesn't matter what the wide players are doing. If you can't get Pogba and Bruno to listen to you, you can't effectively act as a 3, which is what you should be doing as a midfield trio. Okay, so McTominay has got to be more vocal, and he's got to be able to pull Bruno and Pogba around the pitch when we're out of possession. When we're in possession, they can do what they like. But when you're out of possession, you've got to be able to, bring the two players in and around you, the 2 8s, if you want to say, or the 8 and the 10. They've got to be playing with you as a threesome, and that's up to him to have the balls and the bottle to get it done, and that's not happening.
Yeah,
I've said before, whether you like McTominay as a 6 or an 8 or a 10, it's an absolute irrelevance. If he's got anything about him as a player, okay, he'll be looking around that squad, and I've said this about Van der Beek. He'll be looking around that squad and thinking, right, nobody wants to play the 6, so I'm going to fucking grasp it. I'm going to play the 6. And I'm going to watch, I'm going to study some of the best midfielders in the world, like a Lothar Matthäus. I'm going to look at Kante. You look at Kante. Kante will slow the play or he'll speed it up. That's what a CDM does. He's your kind of conductor, all right? You should receive it in tight areas or receive it in space on the centre halves and then deal with it. But as we're quite right, we don't have an issue, or he has an issue with his distribution. He's not great in progression. okay, but he's not strong enough at getting Bruno and Pogba where he needs them to be. As a CDM, you've got to be massively, massively vocal. You are the one that can see the pattern of play. You are the one that can see who's receiving the ball, how many yards is receiving in the ball, and who's slacking and who isn't slacking. And people forget all of this, completely forget all about it. They look at it. If he's got to play 2 or 3 yards to progress us, that's what a CDM does. If he can run 10 yards with it, that's what a CDM does. He then releases it and he pops himself back to where he needs to be. So it's not all about screening, it's utilization of the ball and utilization of being able to utilize Pogba and Bruno better than what he's doing. And he's not doing it. So he's not helping himself.
Yeah, no, I think he makes some intriguing points. And we've had some interesting comments kind of coming in on the situation. I just want to pull this one. I think it's by this guy here. He says, honestly, we just need a commanding CDM. Then you will see Pogba and Bruno control the midfield. Watch Pogba play with Kante for France. And Apex agrees with you. He says, no one is going to listen to McTominay because he's not qualified. It's not McTominay's fault. And they told Donny to leave. Callum, I don't know your thoughts on McTominay, but, I often feel that we've always been being linked with where we're going to go when United are trying to develop for next season. There's been a lot of talk about players like, Zakaria. We didn't get him. There was a lot of talk about Haidara. We did a lot of shows on that on the Off United channel earlier on, and you can go back and check those out in our archives. But, where does this sort of leave our midfield situation? Because the guys who mentioned earlier on about, Pogba, Stu's mentioned there about Fernandez's role in the team. I've just kind of alluded to about, I think it was Fred earlier on, was talking about Matic, being, getting towards the end of his sort of career. Where does McTominay sort of go from here? Because he's in a bit of a do or be done situation, isn't he?
A little bit, yeah. I think McTominay is fine for Man United in terms of squad player, sometimes starting. The problem with McTominay is, like Stu said then about the whole, I want to grasp that number 6 role. He's done okay in the role. And that word okay epitomises Man United in the last 10 years. We've had way too many okay seasons. We've settled for okay because okay is top 4 and okay gives the Glazers a load of money. The problem, and I think I've probably said this sentence on every video for the past 10 videos I've been on All for United.
I'm about to quote tweet this.
we gave Chelsea £40 million for an aging Nemanja Matic.
We did.
Whilst they went and signed N'Golo Kante. If that doesn't tell you how piss poor our recruitment is, I don't know what will. Because Matic was great for a season, and now he's like a Northern Rail train. He is awful. He's slow. He looks like he's carrying a bloody suitcase about. It's not good enough. We gave Chelsea that money to go sign one of the best holder midfielders in the world at this current time. It's ridiculous. So McTominay's problem now is he needs to cement a position in the squad, not the first team, the squad. Because the problem he's going to have now is, whether I agree with this or not is a different thing. But in the next 6 months, I think, and unfortunately, Man United's board are going to do absolutely every single thing they can to go get Maurizio Pochettino. I don't want them to do that, but I think they will do.
Okay.
Once they get him, they will go all out for Declan Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Man United will only ever so slightly improve with Declan Rice. That is with both Pogba and Bruno still in the squad. If Pogba leaves, Declan Rice will not improve Man United at all. The reason why I think this is because Rice is an absolutely great player, and I think he's a great player. And I've even called for a video in the past that United should sign him. Now, I believe United should sign him for a good fee. But for what they are being quoted, they should be staying away from Declan Rice all day. Declan Rice is great, and he's great at West Ham, and he's got a very good midfield by the side of him. I just think the main problem is Pogba's going to leave. I 100% believe he's going to leave. And you watch now, the next 3 months of the season, Pogba will be world class. He'll be world class, and he'll go put himself in the shop window for Real Madrid and PSG to sign him. So then you move on and think, right, well, we'll try and get Declan Rice for 100 million, whilst we lose Pogba for free. Whilst we blow up, because the thing is, Man United need 5, 6, probably even 7 signings this summer.
Yeah.
The Glazers will sanction 3, one of which will be a big money signing. Because for some reason, the shocking businessmen that they are, they believe that one big signing shows the world that Man United are still that big club that can still do that. Which is fair enough, we can do. But footballing wise, we shouldn't be. We should be looking across the board, across the transfer market, and looking like Liverpool do, like City do, like bloody Wolves do. And look at
Brighton as well. Brighton have always been good at picking up players.
And that in itself is a huge problem, isn't it? That I'm having to use those teams in the same sentence as Man United. Man United should be the catalyst at that. It should be the leaders at that. But our scouting network, our recruitment, and all the things surrounding that is piss poor. If I was some kind of football person within the squad or within the club, you'd be looking at you could name 3 players just off the top of your head, and I've got them written down here, so it's not actually off the top of my head. But that Chimene from Monaco, I believe it's Monaco. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Chimene's from Monaco. Yeah.
You've got Neves from
Wolves. Yeah, Wolves.
You've got Tielemans, who only has a year left on his contract.
You've also got Basuma at Brighton, and I think I mentioned one of the comments. I flagged that up just now.
You've got Bazuma at Brighton, who I don't know what his police troubles are, so I don't really.
He's got issues, hasn't he? Bazuma,
yeah.
I don't want to comment on him too much because I'm unaware of his.
Agree.
His out of football stuff, so I'll leave him out of it for now. And then you've got the likes of Haidara from RB Leipzig. You had what's his face? Was it who just went to Juventus for 5 million?
Zakaria.
This argument that there's no value in the market is shit, quite frankly. Bruno came in January. Nemanja Vidic came in January. Rubbish. I never wanted an interim manager. Never, ever. The reason why we got an interim manager is because the Glazers thought January's coming up. If we get a permanent manager, he'll want to spend money. Fuck that. Don't want to do that. Let's get an interim and we'll just go to the summer. Forget the football. We just don't want to spend any money. That's hindered our season straight away.
Yeah,
we had a central midfielder who would have done very well, I believe, for £5 million. Instead of going to sign Declan Rice for £100 million, McTominay needs to book his ideas up because he has 1 man of the match performance and 4 not man of the match performances. He hides way too much and doesn't show for the ball. And as you saw on the Burnley game the other day, weak. He's way too weak, which is why so many United fans say we need to improve the midfield.
Yeah.
So McTominay's really got to show that he can be part of this squad, never mind the first team. Because at the minute, if he carries on with those kind of weak ass tackles against Burnley, it's showing exactly why he needs to be replaced. And Stu's right, he needs to be going and watching clips, he needs to be going to the coaches, he needs to be going, I want to be at this football club for my entire career. Tell me how I can be the best possible midfielder. And if you can't be that, then there's no shame in that. You're still a very good player. Sometimes you're just not good enough for Man United. There's nothing wrong with that. But United have got to be diligent this summer, which I don't believe.
Jarvis has agreed with your point. He says you're addressing one of the accruing themes at United. Washed up players like Matic, Sanchez, Cavani, Zlatan, Ronaldo, etc. We have half a season and end up with disasters. We basically stopped developing players at our club.
I disagree with that second point. I don't think we've stopped developing players at our club at all. I think over the last few years, you've seen, with the likes of Alanga, Rashford.
True.
The one that should not be named at the moment.
There
is examples.
Can I just come in on the McTominay thing? We're going to wrap this up very shortly. McTominay is 20.
Yeah, you probably should, to be fair.
McTominay is 25, right? I feel he's becoming to get towards his peak now. He should be getting towards his sort of peak status where he starts to kind of showcase that. I'm just going to finish this up by going round everybody one last time on this. Do we feel that if the new manager comes in, whether that be Pochettino, as you mentioned, Callum, whether that be Eric Ten Hag, whether that be someone like Luis Enrique, has been linked, I think Lopetegui's been linked as well, whoever that may be, whether it is Ranić, we don't know, but whoever does come in, should they be building the sort of team around about McTominay, or if they don't do that, is McTominay's sort of future in this Man United team really at its end? And Ahmed, we're going to come to you to start with, to finish this sort of last section off.
Let me be a little bit selfish. It should be built about Bruno Fernandes for me, not Scott McTominay. But to answer your question, let's say, for example,
really disagree with that.
theoretically speaking, McTominay is a focal point in this team. Like, first of all, I play 4-3-3 next season. Don't matter what, but I would want two hard-working midfielders in that three midfield. Bruno Fernandes is already one of them. Scott McTominay is the other. I just want someone to just do the cleanup job, sit deep and wipe everything out that the opposition team has for us. And if that would happen, that's great. But Callum alluded to it earlier. It's Glazonomics, isn't it? They really just want one big signing to blow everyone out of the water and say, here he is, nice and shiny, and he won't really fix the problems we have in our team already. I'm looking at the Europa League final line starting 11 right now. Midfield that night was Pogba, McTominay, and Fernandes. The one who shall not be named, Rashford and Cavani up front. Well, we played 4-2-3-1 under Oli that night. McTominay played probably his best game for Manchester United that night and was on the losing side. And it was
I fully agree with that.
Let's just say, yeah, he was man of the match, without a doubt. My man of the match, he was given the man of the match for the final. Undoubtedly, he should have been on the winning side. And it was a shame that the way it happened, he didn't get what he deserved. But I think it was a game where he matured as a player, where he was extremely good at winning the ball back. He was so aggressive in the tackle, stayed calm in the defensive areas. But we're looking at not necessarily a shadow of him now, but we're looking at someone who's not up to that level that we saw for only one night. And what was it? Who was it that we get one good performance out of him and then four bad or for average ones?
I think it was Callum that said that point.
Yeah, thank you, Callum. Those are the sorts of things that annoy me as a player. Your inconsistency. You should not be giving us inconsistent performances. It has to be regular. It has to be every single game for 90 minutes. You can be tired afterwards, we get it, but you have to give 100%. At the end of the day, whoever we get in the summer needs to justify wearing that shirt and giving 110%. And McTominay does it, and Bruno Fernandes too. But if we don't get anyone else that's able to show that, then really, what are we chasing next season? More mediocrity again. And it's going to be a revolving cycle year on year on year. And
okay.
How much longer we can live through that.
Okay. Very much made your point on that one. Fred, come to you. This is your very last chance on this one.
McTominay is not good enough for our first team. End of. He's a good squad player. Likewise is Fred. He should not be anywhere near our starting 11. I've got a good friend, unfortunately, who's a Liverpool fan, and he was just telling me about Fabinho's performance earlier in their game, and he just completely ran that game. Someone else who we should have signed at the time. McTominay, I agree with what Ahmed's saying. It's fantastic that he's one of the few players that is giving 110% each game. You can see it. He's from our academy. That's not good enough in this league anymore. You need to have the quality as well as that. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is City, Liverpool, and possibly Chelsea have raised the bar that high when you need 90 plus points to win the league. And if you look at all of their players, they have got the quality and they're putting in 110% performance levels, energy performance levels week in, week out. So it's not good enough just putting in the effort. We need the quality of player. Unfortunately, I don't see McTominay developing into that good a player, but he's a fantastic squad player. Definitely someone we need. I think his leadership qualities are improving. He knows the club. He's come through the club. I think every manager that he has been here, and while McTominay has been at the team, they've spoken about, they've sung his praises. Mourinho made that fake trophy up, didn't he? Gave it to him. So there's obviously a player there. But do I see him as the future of our midfield? Unfortunately not. I think we need to look into bringing in players who can challenge Liverpool and City.
Okay. Very interesting points you made there. Callum, last point to you on this one?
He's He's a good squad player, okay first teamer, and I think personally Fred's probably the better option of the two of them, amazingly. But again, I think Fred's a good squad player, okay first teamer. We've got a lot to improve. Simple as that, really.
Okay, very, very astute to the point. And Stu, last word to you.
I'll be even quicker. We need 10 Hag and 5 players. That's what
10 Hag and 5 players. And I think that's a very good way to end the show. Short and sweet. Remember,
we need 10 Hag and not Pochettino.
No, 10 Hag and not.
We need 5. We need 5 players.
Yeah, well, I think it was Bobby and Wanzi who's been in fantastic form tonight. Says we need the right characters as well. That's what he's saying. Absolutely right as well. So great to have Bobby in the comments as well, and so many of you commenting on the show tonight. And we've been on the show for an hour and 35 minutes tonight. We could have talked about so much stuff tonight. I know there's some people in the chat want us to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. We simply have run out of time. We will talk about Ronaldo, I'm sure, in future shows on the All for United channel. But I just want to say
I'll come on that one because I disagree with a few people about Ronaldo. So.
Yeah. Okay, and Bobby's actually put say a good show, guys. So just going to wrap things up before we say ta-ra. Where can people find everybody on the socials? Ahmed, where can people find you, bro? You've been absolutely top class tonight.
Thank you. The Twitter is in the handle. That's where you can find me. I tend to, not tweet very much, but if I get angry about football, you'll find me on Ahmed994 right there.
Brilliant stuff. Fred, it's been great to talk to you again, man. Absolutely superb as always. Where can people find you, brother?
Likewise, at MUFC_FW on Twitter.
Very good stuff. Stu, the tactical maestro, as always. Where can people find you? Stu, really? You're just there. You're just there. And Callum, it's been great to have you on. I've really enjoyed you being on the panel. Where can people find you, mate?
Oh, it feels very good to be back. On Twitter at @Callum Stone. If you follow, if you're Sport United, follow me on there. You'll see some stuff about that. Write my own blog, unitedroad.com. I've not wrote for a while because I've been injured. But yeah, follow some stuff on that. And if you hate the Tories, follow me on Twitter and you'll get a good laugh out of that as well.
Likewise.
He's worth a follow, everyone. He's worth it.
He is worth a follow.
Excellent stuff. It's been great to have Calm on the show, as well as the rest of my panel tonight. And thank you, everybody, for commenting on the socials. Remember, we are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and so other many social media platforms. Remember to please like and subscribe All for United on YouTube for more superb content. We have a really, really busy show this week again. So many interesting shows coming up throughout the week. So do check us out for all for United content coming up. But I just want to say I've been Grant. I've been substituted for Keane Frady tonight. Keane, I hope I did a good job for you, my good man. Thanks to everybody who's commented on the show tonight. It's been really much appreciated. And until next time, it's goodbye for now. Cheers.